We're from Lee University, and I'm Josie Carroll, and this is Amy Carpenter. And this semester, we focused our research on data-driven decisions to help maximize profit for Good Grit magazine. Good Grit magazine is a small startup magazine centered in Birmingham, Alabama. And Good Grit covers progressive topics in their magazines that reflect Southern culture and its lifestyle. And they do this through various pieces such as pieces on travel, fashion, events, restaurants, recipes, and significant individuals. Good Grit aims their magazine towards a more affluent demographic, specifically the upper to middle class, those of which making roughly $75,000 or more per year. This can be reflected in their types of advertisements that you can find in their magazine and the style of which their articles are written and the way they look. This semester, Lee University partnered with Good Grit to help them improve their overall revenue for their company. Good Grit is a small startup company, and they've been around for roughly 2 years. And compared to other magazines, it takes roughly about 8 years for a magazine to become profitable. And so Good Grit asked us to help them speed up that process. One thing that Good Grit asked us to keep in mind was to keep their advertisements low. They don't want to have more advertisements in their magazines. They like the feel of their magazine the way it is, and they wanted us to keep it that way. So we decided to explore other ways to help them increase their profit.
One of the primary ways that Good Grit wanted us to look into to increase their revenues was to increase their number of subscribers. One way we think that they could do that is to increase their subscription discount. The subscription discount is calculated as the difference between buying a year's worth of the magazine in a store minus the cost of a year's worth of the subscription divided by the cost of buying a year's worth of the magazine individually at a store. As of right now, Good Grit's subscription discount is at 16%. To contextualize this number, we will look at a study done by Magnet Data. Magnet Data is an magazine information network comprising of wholesalers that represent 99% of magazine sales in the US. They did a study in 2015 and found that the average subscription discount for magazines that publish every quarter is 27%, while the average subscription discount for magazines published monthly is 63%. Since Good Grit publishes bi-monthly, they should probably be somewhere in between these two percentages. However, the Magnet study also stated that they think publishers may be ignoring the profits that could be had through in-store sales by increasing their subscription discounts too aggressively. Furthermore, we think that in-store sales could provide a great opportunity for not only more revenues, but also free advertising to increase the brand recognition of Good Grit. Therefore, we suggest that Good Grit perhaps increase their subscription discount conservatively, but also that they look more into the possibility of sending magazines to more stores. But before we move on to our in-store sales analysis, we had some information about the subscribers to Good Grit that we think is very useful.
The most important piece of information that we had on our subscribers were their gender. So if we know that who is reading our magazine, then we can target more towards that audience. So we can target our advertisings, and we can maybe help improve the style of the magazine to reflect who is actually reading it. So with this in mind, of the 1,691 subscribers that Good Grit currently has, 428 were male and 1,092 were female. We were unable to determine the other 170 subscribers due to things such as ambiguous names, gendered names, and multiple people listed as a single subscriber, so husband and wife. But from this, we were able to extrapolate that for every 2.55 female readers, there was 1 male reader. And so this gave us that roughly 35% of Good Grit subscribers were male and roughly 65% of them were female. This is important information to note because, like I said before, if you know who's reading your magazine, you can cater your magazine more towards a particular person. And so keeping that in mind, when advertising, Advertising magazines more towards males or more towards females will help you keep your current subscribers and then gain new subscribers based on who's actually reading the magazine. So improving in-store sales, you should start off with improving your shelf appeal. And so the brightly colored magazines, so the one with the flowers on it, was Good Grit's most profitable magazine that they've sold so far. And this was due to the fact that there are brightly colored flowers all over the magazine, and it's very eye-catching. And it has a little bit more of a feminine touch to it. So most of Good Grit's readers are female, so maybe this had to do with the fact, maybe this helped this magazine sell better. So when a magazine is on a shelf, it is overlapping with other magazines, and so the side of the magazine that you see most is its left side, and in some cases, even just the top left corner. So this area is where magazines should focus most of their advertising or focus most of their cover. So Good Grit's name is all on the left side, which is very good, but the word grit is sometimes lost in their various pictures on their covers. So if Good Grit were to move the word grit up into the white space, either immediately underneath the word good or to the right of the word good, then the word grit wouldn't be lost and we would see its whole title. Good Grit's slogan, which is the character of the South, can be found on the right-hand side of the page, as well as their issue title, which is on the bottom right-hand side of the page. Both of these pieces of information are lost. So when a customer is walking past, they don't see what this magazine is all about. So if Good Grit were to move the character of the South, its slogan, to underneath Good Grit, and if they were to move their issue title to underneath Good Grit in the picture section, then as a customer is walking past, they would see all of the pieces of information that they would need to see.
Now that we've talked about how to make the magazine have more shelf appeal, we want to help Good Grit decide which stores to send their magazines to. We want to find a category of store that is typically performing well or is likely to perform well for Good Grit in the future. We hypothesize that stores located with zip codes with a higher average income are likely to have a higher sales performance for Good Grit. To measure the sales performance, we looked at the sales efficiency, which is the percentage of magazines that sell at a given store per the number that are sent to that store. To measure the income level of a zip code, we looked at 3 different measurements: the average household income, the per capita income, and median household income. We generated graphs for each of the issues of Good Grit that we had access to and put the sales efficiency on the y-axis and the income measurement on the x-axis. Each of the points represents a store. The data points are very spread across the graph horizontally, and we calculated a correlation coefficient of 0.062, indicating that our 2 variables are not very correlated. In fact, for every issue that we looked at and income measurement, we found a correlation coefficient of less than 0.1. In retrospect, it makes sense that zip codes may be too broad a measurement to look at the income of an area because there could be a lot of variance within one zip code. Furthermore, zip codes in cities may have a very different average income of their residents, which is different than the income of those who are probably going to be shopping there. Even though our analysis seemed to contradict our hypothesis, we still think that the study was useful because going forward, when Good Grit is trying to decide where to send their magazines, they should not let the average income of a zip code deter or encourage them to send their magazines there. However, we still think that the income level of a customer and their likelihood to buy a Good Grit magazine must be correlated somehow. Because we know that retailers also have a target income level for their audiences in mind, we thought that they might be correlated as well. However, when we did a similar test on these, we found that there was not a correlation there either. Again, we think that this retailer type may have been too broad of a category. However, we did find an algorithm to help Good Grit eliminate stores that are not performing well.
This algorithm that we came up with to help Good Grit determine which particular stores, so the Barnes & Noble in Chattanooga versus the Target in Cleveland. These particular stores have sales histories, and so we looked at their sales histories and their efficiencies for what sales periods they were selling magazines in. So if that store had ever sold a magazine, they're actually likely to sell another magazine, even if it was just one magazine in one sales period. So if a store had ever sold one magazine, we left them alone. We then moved on to the stores that had never sold a single magazine ever. We determined that if they did not sell for 3 months in a row, or roughly 1/3 of Good Grit's time that they existed, then they were less likely to ever sell magazines there, so they should stop selling magazines there. With this method, we only eliminated roughly 70 stores. This is due to the fact that Good Grit is so new that some of the stores only had one sales history to look at, or 2 months worth of sales history to look at. And so the 70 stores are just a stepping stone into eliminating some of the less profitable stores. The reason we did this is because even though this isn't necessarily helping Good Grit improve profits, it is helping them waste less money.
In addition to looking at Good Grit's historical data, we also wanted to scope out new, potentially profitable market areas. We did this by looking at a comparable magazine's performance in different classes of trades or categories of stores. One comparable magazine that we found was Garden & Gun. This magazine is very similar in terms of content and style. So we did a class of trade analysis, and this table shows the top 6 highest performing categories of trade in terms of volume of sales per dealer in each category. So the blue bar for each category represents the average draw, or number of magazines sent to a given store in each class of trade. The red bar represents the volume of sales per dealer on average. To determine the success of each class of trade, at first we were primarily concerned with efficiency. For this, we found that sports stores had the highest efficiency out of these classes of trade. However, as you can see, sports stores have a relatively low volume of sales per dealer. So an individual sports store is not actually generating that much revenue for Garden & Gun compared to the others. We found that stores located in terminals had the highest volume of sales per dealer, and they actually had the second highest efficiency after sports stores. Therefore, we think stores located in terminals have a very high potential for profit for Good Grit as well. Club stores like Sam's Club and Costco were a close second to stores located in terminals, but they had a slightly lower efficiency. As of right now, Good Grit is not sending magazines to any stores in terminals or to any sports stores, and is only sending to one club store. We think that all 3 of these areas could potentially be very profitable for Good Grit. We were particularly interested in stores located in terminals because these offer the opportunity for not only more revenue, but also free advertising to the large number of people that go through an airport. Since we were so interested in terminal stores, we tried to help Good Grit find specific stores and specific airports that we think would be especially profitable. Since Garden & Gun typically performed well in large southern airports, we think that Good Grit should start here, particularly in the Birmingham airport, since that's where they are located, and that's where a large number of their sales have historically been. We even specifically found a store that, for Garden & Gun, performed very well in terms of volume of sales and sales efficiency, which was a Hudson News store in Birmingham. We also analyzed stores in 5 other major airports in the South. We recommend that Good Grit start sending magazines to this Hudson News stores, as well as the others that we screened in major southern airports. We think that they should also send more magazines to club stores and sports stores. However, to make this study even more meaningful, we would like to look into other similar magazines. As we talked about before, we think that income and sales performance must be correlated somehow. So we think that Good Grit should continue doing studies in this area to find a way to relate these 2 variables. In the meantime, we think that they should eliminate the 70 stores that we found through our algorithm that seem to be performing poorly. Lastly, we hope that they will take our suggestions for improving their shelf appeal. They have a very stylistic magazine at the moment, which I think is very evident when it is held in hand, but is harder to see when it's on a shelf surrounded by many other magazines. So we would like to thank Lee University, Dr. Mims, and Dr. Griffith, as well as the National Science Foundation for providing us with the resources and guidance needed to conduct this research. Thank you.